Welcome back to another episode of Hot Take, where we are looking at some of the transfer news that's trending and other opinions and views by football fans around the world. And we're reacting to their hot takes, essentially. So a little different to normal. I'm joined by Mark Goldbridge. How are you, mate?
Yeah, good, mate. July the 1st. So hopefully lots of activity about to kick off. That's the hope, certainly in the United fan base at the moment.
Certainly. I was called out because of you, actually, yesterday. I was called out because of you, because I got a mate who had a show with Staffy, who I keep calling negative, and he sent me one of your videos, went, "You're going to call out Mark? You're going to call out Mark?" And I was like, no, sarcastically, of course, but no, because Mark owns me and he controls my opinion, so I can't do that. Do you know what I mean? I do hope it does get a little bit more, as you say. I hope there's some more positive news for Manchester United, because, you know me, I'm quite a positive person. My outlook's pretty positive. But I'm starting to get to a point now as well where I just, we've got to start getting these deals in. Pre-season is 6 days away. And I've said it all along. By the end of that first week, we don't have 3 permanent new signings in. I think, we've started the summer off in a bad way, and I'll criticize it. So a lot of work for United to do along with others. Viewers, get the like button, hit. Make sure you are subscribing to the Football Terrace as well. I'm going to start with Man United, actually, because I saw this tweet. And it said, can't believe I'm seeing Man United fans saying they wouldn't take Ollie Watkins. The same United fans who have been watching Rasmus Højlund stink it up. Unbelievable. What do you make of what Paul said here on the backdrop that United have obviously had conversations about Ollie Watkins?
Well, he's an idiot anyway. Don't worry, I've had history with him. He's absolutely obsessed.
I didn't know that. Sorry.
No, he's obsessed. I just noticed the name there, and I've not noticed it for a while. But yeah, he's obsessed. Yeah, if anyone knows, he just never shuts up about me or the United stand. But look, one thing Paul wouldn't understand, because he just shouts ranty, negative, sort of shallow shit, is that the reason people are a bit confused about Ollie Watkins is because the club itself have basically said that this is not what we're going to do anymore. We're not buying players over 27 anymore. We're going to look for a more sustainable model where if you buy a player and it's a mistake, at least there's a bit of a resale value. So United apparently went into this transfer window with a plan. That plan now, a month in, is to speak to Aston Villa about a 29-year-old striker who's going to be 30 this season, who will probably want 200 grand a week, who will probably cost 40 million pounds, and will probably want a 4 or 5 year contract. And I think United fans are going, shit, not again. I mean, if it works out and he scores 20 Premier League goals a season for 5 years, it's brilliant. But what are the chances of that, percentage-wise, to he does okay, and then in 2 years' time we want to replace him, but he's got 3 years left on his contract at 200 grand a week and he's 31. And I think that is what some people are worried about. Where I do agree with him is that I've always rated Ollie Watkins. I think he is a good striker. I don't think he's useless. He's got a good record, but it does go against what Man United are trying to do. And that panics me, to be honest, Terry, because Ineos have said a lot of things over the last 18 months, and a lot of them tend to be proven to be bollocks. We've seen Dan Ashworth, we've seen, projections of Project 28 and everything like that. And we just seem to be, if they now start buying 29-year-old, I mean, look, we were talking about this on the United stand, they're called last contract players. What clubs are buying last contract players now? What clubs are spending money on last contract players? Real Madrid have been buying players under 21 for years now. Chelsea won't go under 23. Leonardo DiCaprio FC, as I've said before. And won't go over 23, sorry. And Liverpool, every signing under 25. So people aren't even spending money on these players. If I was Man United and you want Watkins, I'd say to Villa, we'll give you 20 million. And I'd say to Watkins, I'll give you 150k a week. And if you don't want it, good luck.
Yeah, that's where I agree with you. I think I was thinking about this last night, because I've been getting called out loads this week for not being angry enough that we're slow in the market. And one of the reasons why I haven't overreacted yet or reacted is I'm noticing that everybody has a different. You might have loads of people that agree that Ineos are not good at transfers, but when you start delving into what their expectations are, they all vary and they're different. So I don't necessarily want to club myself together with. I've got a mate who thinks that by the start of pre-season, we should have 3 to 4 new signings, and all 4 of our big hitters, Rashford's, Antony, financial big hitters, Rashford, Sancho, and Garnacho should all be gone. And I sit there and just think, I think that as an expectation is crazy. So I'm not going to partner with you and be like, yeah, Ineos are rubbish, because I think your expectations are crazy. That all being said, for me, I was looking at it this way: we need the right profiles first and foremost. That needs to be followed by the right deal. So the right transfer fee, the right wages, I agree with. My third part of that priority list is getting it done quickly. An example I would give is this, and I ask this question, I want to pose it to you. Would you take, let's say, at 25 million and 150k a week, Ollie Watkins before preseason or Gyokeres at the end of July? If you could pick one of the two, Ollie Watkins now at the right price and Gyokeres at the end of July at the right price, what would you prefer Man United to do?
End of July, still Gyokeres, because he can drop into the system and he's younger and better. End of July, I would take Gyokeres. End of August, I think, is a different matter.
Yes. No, I totally agree with you. And I think that for me is why I look at this Watkins deal and I think I'm not against it at the right price and the right salary, 100%, because he scores goals. He's a good player. I think he's an elevation from what we've got. But where I agree is don't drop 50 million on him tomorrow and give him 200k a week at the beginning of preseason just because fans want a new signing, when there's potential for getting him cheaper later in the window or getting better players slightly later in the window. And I think, you know, you and I have had this conversation. There is this balance between going too early and not getting enough quality and leaving it too late in the window. And I just, Ollie Watkins is one of those players I look at and think, I like him, but I don't know if I want to see us sign him now. You know, there's reports just come out that there's a compromise that's about to be made between Arsenal and Leipzig for Šeško. That may free up Gyokeres. And I don't know about you, if we sign Watkins tomorrow and then 2 days later, Gyokeres
is
it
free. A good report?
Well, I don't know yet. Actually, I've got. You know, you know what it is? It's from court offside. The thing with court offside is Fabrizio writes to them, and so do others. So I need to look at it. Absolutely. But my point being, I don't want to rush into this Ollie Watkins deal, if that makes sense. I'm not against it, but I think if we rush, we'll end up doing a bad deal. And
you got no worries about. I was just going to say though, the trouble is, for Man United to sign Watkins at the start of start of July, we'd need to have been talking to him since the middle of May. Like if we started speaking to him yesterday, we'd be lucky to buy him before the middle of August anyway. So there's no, I mean, look, it's not like Villa are going to go, take him for 20 million. I mean, can you imagine trying to get Watkins out of Villa as well? The negotiations would be, at least Brentford have said we want 60 million and Mbeumo's worth around 60 million. Villa will go, we want 50 for Watkins. United will go, we'll give you 2. And they'll be negotiating until Christmas.
That's one thing I wanted to ask you, actually. So you're saying 60. See, this is why the conversations are important. And you and I know that we're not trying to catch each other out here. So I am going by what Fabrizio reported, that Brentford wanted 70 million base. And I think Duncan Castle said similar. So that's why, for me, I've not been that stressed or annoyed about the time, because I feel like we're getting them down from that 70 million mark. Whereas yourself, you're sort of more on the level of it's always been 60 million, so let's just pay it. So I suppose that's why the conversations amongst fans at least needs to happen, because when people go to Terry, why are you not as stressed? That's because that's the world I've been living in. Does that make sense? And ever since I saw Fabrizio say they want 70 million base, I've just kind of, well, I don't want to pay that. I think that's too much. I think that's when you're bordering on too much money, and I don't want to overpay. But that's all it is for me. But no, listen, we'll get that deal done. I'm glad the Spurs news has gone away. I'm glad the Spurs news has disappeared, that they're going to hijack him, but that was never going to happen, in my opinion. One of the other things I wanted to play for you, this is a clip from Fabrizio. I want to get your reaction to this, Mark, because we were offered another player that a lot of people rate. Let's take a listen to what Fabrizio has said here.
Also offered the possibility to sign John Duran from Al Nassr on an initial loan deal covering his salary, but Man United decided to turn down that possibility to focus on different targets.
So Fabrizio, they're saying Man United could have signed Duran on loan, but turned it down. Do you agree with that decision by United?
Yeah, because I think United need a permanent fixture. And even if you did get Watkins, at least he's a permanent fixture at the football club. Duran on loan, also the wages are incredible. So, I know Ivan Toney's been mentioned, but again, you're not getting Ivan Toney for Brentford on 150 grand a week. You're going for Ivan Toney, who's probably on 450 grand a week. So, yeah, I think I think 100%. You can't do that. You can't. There's plenty to moan about United about, but I'm not going to moan about them for saying no to that.
No, I agree on that one. I mean, if there was an option to buy, maybe, but he's also on big wages as well. I mean, big wages. I just hope that Fenerbahce come back in and offer them wages to Sancho. I hope that happens, but we need a few of these players to go. Darren here says, could we sign both Watkins and Victor Gyokeres?
No,
I agree. I agree with that. Duran's attitude must stink. I don't know. I think, I know this is going to offend a lot of people, and we're going to get onto what happened last night in a minute. But I think players, Jordan Henderson did the same. I think some players go to that league and pretty quickly are like, oh, there's not, the crowds aren't massive. The atmosphere is not the same as in Europe. You know,
if you go to the Saudi league though, Terry, I think automatically people jump on Duran's attitude, but the Saudi league aren't stupid. I mean, I listened to what Ronaldo had to say, and he is very, very intelligent when it comes to his own brand, and therefore he's a great brand ambassador for whoever he does it for, whether it's, you know, a sports app or it's the Saudi league. And, you know, talking about it being the top 5 league, one of the top 5 leagues in the world is nonsense. Even if Al Hilal beat Man City last night, it's nonsense. But he is a great ambassador for the Saudi league. They are going to have a World Cup in 2030. So I think when you get the Jordan Hendersons and the Durans who don't fit or don't get the brief, I think the Saudi league as well are like, we've got the money, just piss off. Like, we don't want to keep a problem. We don't want you to become a problem. So go. Yeah. And they've got the money to go, you go on loan to Fenerbahce. You know, we've made a mistake here. They're as bad as they're you know, they're not, I don't think they're worried that John Duran has gone in 6 months. I think they'll just be like, okay, we'll go and get someone else.
No, I agree. And I don't think it's bad attitude. I think people just do this. We've seen it happen at Man United. Alexis Sanchez joins. Within 4 days, he realized he made a mistake. What the Saudi clubs are not going to do, and this is praising them, they're not going to sit there and keep someone for three or 4 years when they don't really want to be there. They're just going to go, let's find a very quick resolution to moving somebody on, at least in the short term, and then maybe resolving it. Like you had it with Benzema when he nearly left, and then he ended up staying, and he's been there ever since as an example. But yeah, I actually had that clip from Ronaldo. For the viewers that haven't seen it, let's take a little listen.
Of course, we're still improving, but I believe that in this moment we are in top 5 already. But I still believe that we continue to improve, and we have time, and we show the last 2 years and a half that the league it's going up all the time. So I'm happy because I know the league is very competitive. Only the people who never play in Saudi, they don't understand nothing about football and say this league it's not in the top 5. I believe 100% in my words. And the people who play in this league, they know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, he's top 5 in the world. I mean, I know Al Hilal just knocked out Man City. We are going to get onto that a little later in the show, people, because the clip I've got is brilliant. But I don't know if it's top 5 in the world as a league. I think they've got some good teams. I've watched Al Hilal 3 times at this tournament, and they look tasty.
Well, they are the best team in that league, aren't they?
Yes. But top 5.
No, because it's like, look, the Italian league, the German league, the Spanish league, and the Premier League are way better than the Saudi league. So really, you're saying, is it better than the Brazilian league? I'm not convinced. Actually, I'm not convinced it's better than the Brazilian league. Look at how well they've done in the Club World Cup. We forget that. I don't think it's better than the French league either. So some people might say it's not better than the Portuguese league. And the reason for that is they might have some players that are better than players in Portugal. But when you look at some of the Saudi teams, half of those teams still have got players that are not that good. You still might have your Benzemas, etc. So, but where I do agree with Ronaldo is it's definitely getting better. It's definitely getting better because it's starting from nowhere. So it's definitely getting better. And that's a big result for Al Hilal last night. But it's not a top 5 league. But he is paid a lot of money, and he's the GOAT of the game. And I love Ronaldo, and I would sit there and do the same. His job is to promote that league, and he's not talking total shit. He's just talking a little bit of shit. You know? It may well be a top 10 league in the world now. So it's definitely getting better, but it's not a top 5.
I kind of view it from this point of view too. Boxers sometimes do this and damage their own legacies. MMA fighters. They'll talk about how crap their opponent is and how they're going to beat them easily and they're nothings. They win, and then they sit there and go, why am I not getting more praise and more accolades for winning this fight? Well, maybe what you're better off doing is in a build up to a fight, telling the world how amazing this fighter is and the level they're at and how brilliant they are. So when you beat them and you beat them well, the narrative's out there. Sometimes you've got to listen. Some people look at that as being fake. Sometimes in this world, you've got to control the narrative a little bit better. One, Ronaldo's a professional. So, you know, people do this whole thing about, he's not being a real one. He's only saying it because he's being paid. What, like everyone else who has a job? I beg you go work for a big bank. I beg you go and work for. Imagine you work for a restaurant and you're the one of the main faces of it, and everyone that walks in, hi, welcome. Oh, I'm so excited to eat your food. Yeah, there's about 10 other restaurants on the street that are better. Yeah. Like if you did that, you'd lose your job. So we live in this weird world now because of social media where people act like being professional is a problem. That genuinely scares me for the future of this country and the world, that being professional is now seen as being fake. It's like, no, it's the professional side to yourself. You know what I mean? We've all sent those emails, you know, as per my last email. We know that's code for why the fuck am I having to rewrite this? But you can't talk like that in a professional environment. So yeah, I don't agree with him. I don't agree with his point, but I'm not going to hate on him for saying it. He's got a job. He's being paid £200 million a year. I mean, did you see his new contract?
It's like £7 a second, isn't it? Me and Seb were walking to school the other day, and I was saying like that. And he's like, how much do you earn a second? I said, I wouldn't even like to do the maths, but let's just say in a minute we can probably go and get a Frodo or something like that, you know.
Yeah, it's 178 million a year, 15% ownership in the club. Like that, people are forgetting that. 24.5 million signing on bonus, £80,000 per goal, 20% increase in the second season, 40,000 per assist with a 20% increase, 8 million bonus if they win the league, 4 million if he wins the Golden Boot. This is my favorite bit though. 16 full-time staff, 3 drivers, 4 housekeepers, 2 chefs, 3 gardeners, and 4 security people. 4 million's worth of private jet expenses, so he can fly wherever he wants, and then 60 million pounds worth of sponsorship deals promised by Saudi companies for the Asian market. So you add it all up with the amount of goals he scores, it's probably, and the cost of like the private jet, the staff, you're looking at a £300 million a year contract. He's definitely going to pray. Why would he be in? I think, forget being a real one. I heard this phrase yesterday. I'm plagiarizing it. It's brilliant. If he slagged off the league, my comment to Ronaldo would be this: I'm not calling you the most stupid person in the world, but you better hope the most stupid person don't die, because you're going to go number one. It's literally, he'd be an idiot to start slagging off or playing down a league where he's earning 300 million a year.
You missed
crazy.
One as well. I'm just going through the list here. You know, you were talking about he gets paid for assists and goals. There's one here. £10 million for saying that the Saudi league is the top 5 in the world. That's a joke. That's a joke. But you know what I mean. I'd say it's the best. I'd say it's the best league in the world if I was getting all of that.
Mate, you know what's funny as well. Like we get it in this industry, don't we? Like you must have had other YouTubers in the past slag you off. Oh, Mark, somebody positive about this player because he's paid to be, or doesn't want to get. Oh, he has a sponsorship deal. I'm like, I've never heard Robbie say that to anyone. I've never heard True Geordie say that about anybody. I've never heard Saeed say that about anybody. You know, he has these sponsorship deals. It just tends to be people that don't get sponsorship deals. Do you know what I mean? Or people that are not happy in their job, that, oh no, you've got to speak out. You've got to speak out against your bosses. Well, what? Because you're unhappy. I've got to, because you're unhappy in your job, I've got to lose my job. That doesn't even make sense. Like, young people, don't listen to this stuff, man. Don't listen to this stuff. Keeping it on the Saudi league. Obviously, last night, Man City were knocked out by Al Hilal. That was a great little bit of news to wake up to. I don't
think anybody even watched it, did they? I mean, you know, I woke up this morning and like loads of people were like, "Where's the Man City in crisis video?" And I said, to be fair to Man City, I don't even care about the Club World Cup. I've sort of given up on the Club World Cup, but that's a separate conversation. It was a shock.
It certainly was. I think a little humbling. And obviously, I know, CFC lad here comes on the United stand for previews. So I thought I'd play his little clip he put out. Let's take a little listen.
Great watch. We just lost 4-3 to Al Hilal. That was terrible. I have to say, that was terrible. We all had our eyes set on the Fluminense game in the quarterfinal. Were we complacent? Probably. Were Al Hilal decent? Yes, they were. Were we very bad? Yes. We conceded 4 goals. We shouldn't be losing that game. Very, very poor, and at the end of the day, we've only got ourselves to blame. But at least we got out of the group. We've just lost in the round of 16. Not ideal at all. We're out of the Club World Cup. But anyway, everyone said it was a pre-season anyway, so yeah, we'll just go with that one, even though we have sort of been embarrassed a bit there.
I mean, that was a mixed
I'd love to get him in the
emotions.
dock. Bloody hell, he's all over the place here, isn't he? I mean, I think City fans, bless them, they're just confused. They've been telling everybody that we're jealous that we're not in it, and now they're saying, "Wow, it's just a pre-season tournament anyway." Yeah, but we are a bit good. I mean, look, the tournament is what it is. It's massively confusing. We've had conversations like it was one of those where I was dead against it anyway. Huge money, of course, and I think that will annoy Man City, because I think going out in the last 16 compared to the quarterfinals, I think there's another 50-60 million they could have earned there just by getting to the final, which is more than you can. It's a lot of money, 60 million, just to get to a final of a tournament like that. So you can't, the money was always the thing. But, Liverpool Arsenal fans are like, glad we're not in it. We get a rest. We get a pre-season. It's a big season coming up. Be interesting to see how it impacts on Man City. They obviously were taking it seriously. So respect to Al Hilal. They've beaten a City side that wanted to win it. And I think that my big takeaway from that is eyes on the Premier League then, because when is this Chargers case getting dealt with now? Because surely the Club World Cup was a hold up for that. So are we actually going to find anything else that's happening with Man City now? Because, that's surely the question. When are we going to find out about the Man City thing now? Because we're about to start another season.
Yeah, I think there needs to be a resolution on that. Whether it goes City's way or against them or 50-50, yeah. I just think football fans, including City fans for a moment, I just think that most of them publicly back their club and say they're not worried. Some won't be, some will be, and they're hiding it. But I do think that everybody just needs a resolution to that now. A question on City, though, for you. I know you didn't watch the game particularly last night, but there's a lot of City fans across socials and a lot of rivals that watch the game, Mark, saying same problems. The defense hasn't improved. There's been, I think, I may get this number wrong. I know it was like 200 million spent in January. They've dropped another 100+ million. So 300 to 400 million pounds has been spent between January and the Club World Cup. And there's a lot of City fans saying, yes, there's been some good attacking football at this tournament, but the same old problems are still there. There's a lot of money that's been invested. Where's your head at right now? And it could change with more signings, but with a broken pre-season, because they're now going to go and have, everyone else returns next week. They're going to probably now go and have their sort of month's rest. With a broken pre-season, a lot of money spent and still big problems at the back. Do you feel like City could have another tough campaign next year?
Well, I think Liverpool and Arsenal are better than them. I expect Man City to get better. They've bought a lot of decent players in again. But I think Pep's only there for the money now. I think Pep had enough. I think we saw that. And I think Man City, maybe they wanted Amrim, maybe they didn't. But there clearly wasn't a Pep replacement out there that they felt they could land on. And I think that this was meant to be the summer where Pep went and they had a proper rebuild. And now they've got Pep doing the rebuild, but he doesn't look like he's got the energy for it. I think Pep's, you can see it in his eyes. He just doesn't look like he's engaged in it now.
Yeah.
And I think going into next season, Arteta and Slot look really like Pep and Klopp did a few years ago. So I think it's going to be very difficult for City. But I think what City have lost is that aura. A couple of years ago, they'd trounce Al Hilal. They'd breeze their way through to the latter stages. Whereas, like I say, there's a vulnerability about them now. They're still a really good team, but I mean, look at that Man City fan. He's shocked because they're not used to that. They're like, what's just happened there? You can tell that he's just skirting around looking for answers. And I think that I think Man City will be comfortably top 3, but I'm not sure they're going to be able to deal with Liverpool and Arsenal next year.
And I'm not saying this is fact. I'm just throwing it out there as a theory. What Fergie and Wenger, in fairness, the last 4 or 5 years of his tenure shouldn't have been there. But the time that Fergie and Wenger spent at a club wasn't long-term. It was astronomical. Most long-term appointments, even in the days where managers lasted longer, they were only ever like sort of 5 to 10 years. That was in an era where you didn't change too often. There is also maybe a glaring thing here that City fans are not even thinking about. Maybe Pep has just run out of energy, as you've suggested, or burn out a little bit. And all it takes at this level of sport is 5% of your game to be off, 10% of your game to be off. And you look at a different team. I was watching the tennis yesterday, and this, I don't even know his name. I can't remember his name now. This Italian, 38 years old, retiring, was playing Gyokeres in the first round, and he pushed him right until the end. And it was because Gyokeres was making unforced errors and making mistakes well above his normal percentage, as in like his game was off by 4 or 5%. And suddenly a guy ranked stupid low was this close to beating him. And that's just a 5 to 10% drop off. There's only small margins between the best and the worst teams at the elite end of sport. I think it's something they've got to look at. Because look at this comment here from Rahman, who's a City fan. He doesn't understand why they bought Gonzalez, Heiss, and Krustanov. And yet he just keeps them on the bench and keeps playing the Akes and the Akanjis that were part of the problem before they came in. And I think a lot of City fans now are just a little bit miffed that you're dropping 300+ million pounds, but barely any of those players are getting onto the football pitch. Like you've said, does he really want the rebuild, or does he want to keep playing his players? So there's going to be an interesting season for Man City. There's no doubt about that. This here from Duran says, what year did we enter the cup and got done for dropping out of the League Cup to play in the tour? Oh, that was in the 99 going into 2000. That was the year after the that was that. And look, I still look at that as a mistake by United, but I understood at the time there was a feeling that the World Club Cup, or the Intercontinental as it was called then, would become this huge global competition. And we're going to be honest with you, that the South Americans have always taken it seriously. But I've seen loads of English teams win the Champions League, and I've never seen any fan where they've not won the Club World Cup like have a meltdown, like their season's a disaster. I just don't think in Europe it's ever been taken as seriously as in South America. And yeah, that was a mistake to do that, really, because
the World Cup would have been great if it had Liverpool, Barcelona, Sporting, Napoli, proper champions in it, and I think it would work.
Yeah.
But how they get over that, I don't know. I mean, look, even Chelsea fans are just loving being in this tournament because, I mean, did you see that Sky Cave thing at the weekend? They outed himself as an absolute prat. Go and play paddle, this, that, and the other, and it's like, no one said, people are free to watch it and not many people are watching it, mate. But the big problem people have got with it is the ridiculous amount of money they've chucked at it to justify a tournament that lacks integrity. I don't care whether the money comes from Saudi. I don't care whether Chelsea earn £100 million out of it. That's not why you can't buy an audience. You can't buy integrity. And the reason people aren't engaged in this, and the biggest offensive thing I've heard about the Club World Cup is they put it in the wrong country. Like, I was in New York a few weeks ago. Most of the basketball places out and about have got goals in them now. People are playing football. The World Cup in 1994, there was some shitty game that went on. It had about 80,000 people there. They will turn up if you take stuff there that's got integrity, but they won't turn up. They're not stupid. They won't turn up in their thousands for a tournament that they know nobody really values. So you watch what happens with the World Cup in Canada, Mexico, and the United States next year. The stadiums will be packed out for games you'll be surprised about because they'll buy into what the World Cup is.
Yeah.
They're just not buying into the Club World Cup. And who is? Nobody is. Everybody is trying. I mean, I was listening to, went up to Manchester a couple of weeks ago and the radio was on. And they're going, the best teams in the world compete for the Club World Cup. And I actually spoke to myself in the car, turned the volume on, and went, it was not the best club team. Yeah, I'm actually having a conversation with myself in the car going, but it's not the best club teams in the world, is it? And that's where it's gone wrong.
Yeah.
It's just
you even look at Benfica being there. Sporting have won back-to-back league titles and they're not there.
Yeah.
It doesn't even. So there is that element there as well.
Why are Juventus there? They've been crap for years.
Yeah, it must be because of when they last get to a Champions League final. It might have something to do with that. Obviously, I get why Inter are there as an example, but I can't quite put my finger on it. I'd love to speak to the City players because I do think the atmosphere plays a part in some of these games. Like I've watched a few Saudi matches. they quite often have stadiums that are only half full or quite small. But if you're like a City fan, I'd love to speak to the European sides. The Brazilians have done, part of the reason why I think the Brazilians have done well.
Come on, mate. City fans are used to playing in front of not many people. You should have used a different club. Chelsea. Speak to Chelsea fans.
This is fair. Like the Brazilians have brought a lot of people with them. So the Brazilian games, teams where the Brazilian sides have played have been my favorite to watch. One, the football's been good, but there's been a crowd. There's been genuine noise and oohs and ahs when shots are missed and great celebrations when they've scored goals. I would love to talk to the players and say, how do you feel when you're out there? Because I think the atmosphere is key. I really do think the atmosphere is key for sports people. We saw it during the lockdown when the games were behind closed doors. Sometimes you'd score goals and you weren't sure if it was a goal or not. You'd go, I can't, because you couldn't hear what's crazy is the crowd is such an indicator for what's going on in a match sometimes. And you didn't have that noise anymore. So from a television point of view, I think we lose a bit. I'd love to ask the players, do you feel as dedicated to the game? Do you feel you run as hard, tackle as hard when there's 15,000 people watching and no atmosphere? And it sounds like Soccer Aid versus...
Well, they're tired as well, aren't they?
Yeah, there's all of that. And it's one of these things, people view it as hate. I'd love to have the conversation. Mark here with a very interesting comment says, Terry, I hate watching the Football Terrace. All you do is respond to news and spout educational common sense nonsense that people don't want to hear. Why bother? Sarcasm may be lost in thanks, Mark. I appreciate that comment. I do, because I get a lot of abuse for playing devil's advocate. It's a weird world. Terry Fognini is an experienced vet. He is, but they read out a stat, and I've only started watching tennis again this year. They read out a stat that he hadn't won a competitive game against a ranked opponent in 4 years. My point being, Alcaraz was off by 5-10%, and the game was really close. At the elite end of sport, typically there are no such thing as like a bad tennis player that's at Wimbledon. There's just very good right through to world class. But if the difference between the world class guys and the guys that go out in the first round, it's not massive. Federer was saying that he only won like 52% of all the points he ever played for. That shows you the margin between being Roger Federer and being someone no one remembers. 4 or 5% in the other way, and you're not remembered by the general public, maybe by the diehards. And that's why those every inch, as the brilliant, what's his name? Any Given Sunday actor.
Pacino.
That's why Pacino's speech was so important. Every inch matters in sport and in life, young men.
And the bedroom.
And yeah, I was about to say, well, it's because I always think that nonsense of motion in the ocean. I just think that's how women whose boyfriends have are not very blessed. That's how they make them feel better. It must be. That's why I think they've always said it to me. It's about the motion in the ocean, Terry. You know, it's
DB's just said Mark sat there with no idea about tennis, mate. There used to be a game called Grand Slam Tennis on the Wii. You could play online. I was in the top 300 in the world, and they discontinued it. It was brilliant. But I am now in the top 500 in the UK for Thrill of the Fight 2, which is absolutely incredible. It's like boxing, VR.
Can you box? Can you fight? I've always wondered that.
I'm all right. Yeah.
Well, you've obviously had a lot of people call you out for fights in the past, especially when YouTube boxing was like a big thing. Do you remember? You must have had a few
I could have took loads. The best one I ever got offered was, and I had to get Robbie to find out what he meant, because at that time DT was still on AFTV. He offered me out, but it wasn't a boxing match. It was a cage football match with a goal in it, and the cage was locked. So I said to Robbie, if we're playing 1v1 football, I've already done him. The video's there. I'll do it. Yeah. But in this locked cage, is he going to pick up like a chainsaw or something like that? Why are we in a locked cage? Are we playing football, or is it like, has he got some weird thing going on here? I don't know.
Did you see? I saw it trending yesterday. There's this new sport where people play football, but they've got boxing gloves on and they're punching each other whilst they're trying to get past each other playing football. Maybe it was that. I like
the one where you wear the big balloon suit and play football.
Yeah, that'd be fun. That'd be fun. No, that'd be great. Viewers, make sure the like button is being hit if you haven't done so already. I've got this is an interesting comment. Obviously, Eze to Arsenal feels like it really is going to happen, or at least is progressing at this moment in time. Here's an interesting take, Mark. It says here, Eze is better than Rodrigo. Let's get it done ASAP.
No, Eze is not better than Mbeumo.
Do you not think?
It's not better than Cunha. I think Man United would have gone there if they thought he was. Actually, don't use Man United's recruitment as an example that he's better. No, I really like Eze, and I think I can see him in an Arsenal shirt. And what I like about the Eze to Arsenal deal is that he definitely deserves, like Elise, to play at a higher level. No disrespect to Palace. But I think Spurs would be a bad move. I'd stay at Palace. But I think if he goes to Arsenal, what a great opportunity that is. And what I liked about the Eze story was what David Ornstein says, that this would actually be separate to a winger or a striker, which is incredible. And that's what's scary about this transfer window. The volume of players that Chelsea and Liverpool and Man City are bringing in, but potentially Arsenal as well. They could get Norgard, Mascara, Zubimendi, Eze, a winger and a striker, which would be amazing for their depth. So, yeah, I mean, look, if they can do the deal, great. I think they've got to get a couple of players out, haven't they, first? But
yeah, I agree. Look, I don't think he's better than Rodrigo. And what's interesting about some Arsenal fans, I've seen this all summer, is they do this thing of when they think they're getting Šeško, Šeško's better than Gyokeres. When they think they're getting Gyokeres, I've got to find the reasons why Gyokeres is better. When they were linked to Eze, and at first there was this thought that, well, it's Eze or Rodrigo, but Eze feels more likely. So it's like, let's make sure Eze is better. Now the news has come out, they're in for both.
Rodrigo is a fantastic player. I've always really liked him.
Yeah, he's amazing. But I do agree with you, actually. I actually think Mbeumo and Cunha's to Man United, I think they're such underrated. Just forget the speed at the moment and what else we need. We just look at them as individual deals. I don't think there's been many Premier League teams that have signed players that I look at and go, they're just like attacking players that are miles ahead of those two. I think they'll prove that next season as well. I think that Mbeumo and Cunha are absolute top players, and we've done a good job convincing them to join. And we just hopefully they're in for pre-season and with a little bit more. But yeah, Eze would be great for Arsenal. I really do think that would be a massive move. But their fans are not particularly happy either, are they, about the sort of speed of execution this summer? And what do you make? We haven't really spoke about this, but they've done a lot of their fringe bit. Obviously, Zubimendi, it was announced today. It's only been delayed because Sociedad asked them to delay it. But they've done a lot of their fringe business, and a lot of Gooners have been unhappy that they've got the fringe stuff done first.
I don't think it really matters. I think some people get a little bit sort of like you sign player in priority order. I don't think Frimpong was Chelsea's priority. I think Liverpool's priority. I think Wirtz was. I don't think Delap is Chelsea's priority. I think that Pedro was probably a bigger signing than him. So I think this is where the director of football comes into play, and I think this is where United have struggled and maybe struggling again because Wilcox is still inexperienced and Berta's one of the best in the games. He's lining up deals, and it's almost like a transfer is it's a bit like getting through a maze. You've just got to get out of that maze by a certain time, and I think that if Arsenal just said we want a striker first, you still wouldn't have Šeško or Gyokeres. And then when you do get them, you've then got to go and do Kepa and Norgard and Zubimendi and everybody else. So I think that I understand Arsenal's frustration because you could buy Rodrigo, you could buy Eze, and they'll still moan about the striker because it's they know that striker's the thing that they need to win a title. Do you need a player in for the first day of pre-season? It helps. You definitely need them in for the tour.
Yes.
And I think that's what I would say to Arsenal. Like you definitely do. But I feel like they'll get it done quickly when they do jump on things because they're not like United. They're not going to talk for 5 weeks to Šeško or Gyokeres. I think it'll get done quick. I think it will be Šeško in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, I hope it's Šeško. I still think he's a good player. But I really want it to be Šeško because I want the Gyokeres deal to go our way. Rob here says, show your ambition if you go out and get the striker first is the one you hear a lot. It is. The problem is, I get why people think. I've done some research into it this week, Mark, and I was looking at the percentage of deals done by top 6 teams each week through transfer history. At this stage of transfer windows, from 2003, when they started, till now, the highest percentage ever done by any club of like players through. So the highest average ever by the top 6 club is 15% of your total signings that summer done by this date or done by this stage of a transfer window. And it isn't to say that you shouldn't aim to get it done quicker, but I do think about expectations. So, for instance, I agree. I think me and you largely agree of by the time United sort of start pre-season and are ready to go on tour, because of the situation we're in, I think we need at least 3. At the same time, so if anyone's sitting there going, we need all 6 by the start of pre-season, all 7, that's when I sit there and think, I get you're angry, but I think your expectation is so delusional. I might moan that we haven't got 3 in. But if you're going to moan there ain't 6, I'm not partnering with you on this conversation. I'm not in do you get what I'm not in the same ballpark as you, because you're always going to be angry, because no club, I don't think any club, if you're signing 5 or 6 players, has ever signed 4 or 5, 6 major signings in a summer before pre-season has kicked off. So suddenly putting that pressure on, I'm only going to be happy if Man United do that. That's where I think I know everyone says everyone's entitled to an opinion, but that for me is a ridiculous one. It doesn't hold any water. So I think conversations have to be had about these things and everything else. But yeah, there's also talk that this year Zubimendi will be in. I didn't realize Arsenal back in pre-season training tomorrow. That's early. But he says here that Zubimendi will be there for pre-season training, which was always going to be the case. Another take for you here from our mate Buvey. Listen to this, Mark. This is a doozy. You'll love this one. He says here that decent signing about João Pedro to Chelsea. He says, but how have Chelsea spent 1.5 billion in 3 years and still have 0 world-class players in their side?
Do you want me to drop a mic? So you could argue whether Chelsea have got world-class players or not. They've certainly got quite a few top-class players. But the Chelsea transfer policy is really obvious. They buy people under 23. How many players under 23 are world-class? Chelsea's transfer policy, whether you agree with it or not, is to buy players under 23 with the potential to be world-class. That's it. So the reason they haven't got world-class players is because they don't buy world-class players. They buy top-class players with the potential to be world-class. Now, some Chelsea fans, I agree, aren't happy about that. I personally think buying a world-class goalkeeper and a world-class striker would take you to the next level. But that would mean buying somebody over 23, unless you're going to go and buy Erling Haaland up front, or, well, is there a world-class goalkeeper under 23? So, it's a dig. Buvey's a troll. We all know that. And, I'm sure some Chelsea fans are bitten on it. But the honest answer is, and he knows it, he's not stupid, is that the Chelsea transfer policy is to buy people under 23. And you could argue that they have world-class players now, but Enzo wasn't world-class when they bought him. And Cole Palmer wasn't world-class when they bought him. So whoever you think is world-class in a Chelsea team now, it still stands to reason. You don't buy world-class players. You buy players with the potential to be world-class. That's your policy.
Yeah, no, listen, I agree. I think there's 2 separate conversations. There's the one you've just mentioned. So they don't buy world-class, they buy potential, versus is that the right strategy? And for me, they're 2 different conversations, and what I'm seeing a lot around Chelsea at the moment is those conversations being muddled together, if that makes sense. It's like, I don't understand what they're doing. How do you not understand what they're doing? What you mean, I think, is you don't agree with the strategy, and there's a fundamental difference between agreeing with the strategy and not understanding it. Chelsea, as you say, this is why they're not going to go for Rodri, they're not going to go for Gyokeres, because of the age and the wages, but they are more likely to go after the young attacking players and they're more likely to sign the young attacking players than the rest of us. So I get the strategy. Sorry,
what world-class players have Man City bought in the last 10 years? Erling Haaland wasn't world-class. He was playing for Dortmund. He had the potential to be world-class, but he needed to go there. De Bruyne wasn't world-class when they bought him. Rodri wasn't world-class when they bought him. So, look, this is the difference. But some people just say stuff. Rory's the same, isn't he? I heard him say something the other day. I can't remember what it was. Just it's a bit like Haaland's going to flop. Some people are very clever in the way that they post something, knowing the end game is interaction. It's not what they believe. And Man City don't buy world-class players either. They don't. They buy players with the potential to be world-class. Most people, Real Madrid normally buy world-class players, but sometimes they buy players with the potential to be world-class.
It is true. I mean, this is also one of the reasons why maybe it's because I'm an old man, Mark. I see people moan about Man United. So I'm using United as an example. There'll be a fan who's 30 years old, 31, 32. They're not massive fans of how Fergie played football. They hate all the talk about our DNA and academy. They despise the class of 92. They always want us to judge by superstar players, never that young gem no one's heard of or by this guy to develop. And I start to sit there and think and they don't like, they like a brand of football that United have never really played, even under Fergie. And I sometimes sit there and think, how are you a Man United fan? Just objectively speaking, you don't like nothing about the club or its history. You know, certain clubs behave in different ways. And as you say, Man United, we have bought stars before, but the vast majority of the players we have bought a lot of top players in Fergie's era. We bought a lot of top players from the Prem, Andy Cole being an example, Van Persie, etc. But for every one of them, I would say you'd get 4 signings from players both from the UK and abroad who were relatively unknown. Nobody had really heard about them. How would they do at Man United? We're not too sure. But then they developed into something. When we bought Ronaldo, nobody knew who he was, as an example. You know, when we bought Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, it was actually laughed at. I remember who's this guy that bought him from this Norwegian league. And I'm not saying he was R9, but what he did for us was absolutely amazing. So I don't know. I just feel like sometimes, as you say, there is with Chelsea, the proof's going to be in the pudding over the next couple of years if they start winning major trophies, if they start competing. But I do agree with you. Pretending like you don't understand their strategy, I think it's getting to a point now where, like when people don't understand how they can spend money, it's like, how are you not following? I think in the last 5 years, they've sold over 800 million euros worth of players. That's why they've got money to spend.
And the women's team.
And they sold the. Mate, we spoke about that. Do you remember when we were in Manchester together and we were walking to the hotel? Separate rooms, by the way, people.
I was going to say that was it wasn't foreplay. Let's talk about the women's team.
Well, it wouldn't be if we were sharing a room. But we were saying we hope United do something like this. Now we've done something with a separate business account that's making profit versus the company that's making a loss. But I'm not going to lie, I want us to do it as well. Now this, by the way,
Villa are doing it.
Villa have done it. Yeah, we've got to follow suit. We have to follow suit.
It's an incredible. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if City exposed the Premier League for rules that weren't correct, because I'm sure this is going to come back at some point. How can you sell your women's team? I mean, what are they going to sell next? The pitch? Oh, sorry, lads. We'll have to abandon the second half because Ron and Steve have booked it out. The sunbathing in the penalty box. You know. Just play around them. It's like, how can you sell a women's team, your own women's team? It's incredible.
The bit that I would love to understand is Deloitte in January, so before any of this had happened, ranked. So people like Deloitte understand money, right? So they ranked the most valuable women's teams in the world based on the players, the success, the sponsorship. The most valuable women's team in the world, according to them, was Arsenal and Barcelona joint together, where they were valued at 17.9 million euros each. So for me, Chelsea's came in at third 13.4 million. The only bit I want to have, Man United, by the way, we're fourth on that list at 10.7 million. So if Chelsea have got 200 million, maybe 200 million for theirs, I want to know how that's doable. I'm not saying they've broken a rule. I want to know how the valuation has been publicized by the biggest accountancy firms in the world, like Deloitte and KPMG, ranging between 10 and 17 million euros. Aston Villa's comes in at 6 million euros on this list. How have they sold a 6 million euro asset for 50 million euros to themselves? That's because if that's true, for me, I'm going to do the same. Do you know what I mean? I'm going to sell a 10,000 pound piece of my business for £1 million. That's what I'm going to do. Do you know what I mean? And suddenly I'm a millionaire. That's the only bit I'm confused about. It doesn't make any sense. Premier League clubs voted not to close the loophole. No, we know that. We understand that. What I'm not getting is how I'm talking from forget the football rules. I'm talking from a legality point of view. How is something valued? If I now value my house at £500,000, but Mark paid £5 million for it, the Inland Revenue are investigating. Fraud are getting involved, as Mark's background will tell you. That would get flagged. In fact, you wouldn't even get a loan for it. It wouldn't even go through. They go, hang on, no one would pay 10 times, 20 times, 30 times the value. What's going on here? So again, by the way, I want Man United to do the same if it's above board, because I want us to have no money issues. So I'm not saying don't do it. I just don't understand the rationale is all I'm saying. So please, please, please don't cry. We're not slagging it off at all. Listen, everyone who's tuned in, I want to say a big, big thank you to each and every single one of you. Please hit the like button before you go. Go follow the United Stand and That's Football, Mark's biggest 2 channels, along with Mark Goldbridge Cooks and Mark Goldbridge Drives and Mark Goldbridge Hot Takes. You're everywhere, mate. I've seen it. It's you're like Kevin Hart. If it's available, Mark's there. So go and support all of that. We are going to be live again at 3:30 today, UK time, for Straight Facts with Dan Potts and LB. So come follow that. 2 o'clock on the United Stand.
Yeah. 2 o'clock and 8 o'clock. Yeah.
So get yourselves across there, everybody. I know it's the same time every day, but always want to check. Get yourselves across there to support our channels at that time.
Unless probably live at about 1 as well for Here We Go Mbeumo.
What do you reckon?
No.
I thought one of your sources knew something.
No, not about. I don't know anything about Mbeumo. I've never heard anything. That's why I didn't think it was going to happen. That's why when I was on that plane and it was like Terry, I was like, quite surprised.
It's a great day. Listen, everybody, appreciate you all being here. Take care. Goodbye. God bless. And we'll see you all again very, very soon. Peace.
Cheers, everyone.